You are listening to the Football Diehards podcast with your hosts, Justin Lonero and Bob Harris, sponsored by DraftKings. Sign up now using promo code DIEHARDS, DIEHARDS. Make a first-time $5 deposit, and you'll receive a free $3 ticket.
Hello and welcome to the Football Diehards podcast. I'm your host, Justin Lonero, along with my co-hosts, as always, Mr. Kyle Dvorchak, Mr. Bob Harris. Gentlemen, Super Bowl come and gone. We are coming up to the tail end of February, mid-February, late February. What is going on in Albuquerque tonight, Mr. Harris?
The usual, just hanging out. The weather got a little inclement here all of a sudden. Suddenly, a storm blew up on me, but it'll be okay. And so the real thing that's going on is the NFL offseason is rolling on. And I say offseason when I mean alter season, as you well know, guys. It's been already active. We've had some quarterback talk. Kyle and I did in the previous edition. We're going to follow up on some of that. I think we're about to hit a lull, but there's been some moves and a little news in the last day or two. But just want to remind everyone, lots of content up on the website. Go check it out. Kyle is pumping out articles like nobody's business, including his latest one, favorite, fantasy destinations for both free agents and rookies. John Lobb has a lot of his rookie content up. And it's time to get your early bird discount on your subscription. Sign up now, get a 15% discount. Use the promo code DIEHARDS, and we can keep delivering the goods. Kyle, tell us what's in that article. Just kind of highlight.
I mean, the one thing, and this is part of the article, but it's also undoubtedly part of my heart, is that it is unparalleled how good the weapons could potentially be for the Denver Broncos. Like, I think we could look back on this and say, like, oh, wow, we just wasted a year. I mean, I guess, like, Courtland Sutton you didn't necessarily waste, but for a lot of it, we just wasted a year of these sick weapons with Drew Lock. And I was about to say it's not a slight against Drew Lock. Like,
yes, it is.
It is. He's not that good. He's one of the, 40 best football players in the world, but that's not enough. So I think maybe that is the most interesting part of writing that for me was that, man, if they find out a quarterback, I mean, it doesn't have to be the best quarterback, but if they get some sort of luck where a quarterback falls to them, I mean, they have spent more draft capital in the first 2 days than every other team in the past 3 years, except I believe Baltimore, and they're tied with one other team. And even their back end of the roster kind of guys, like Tim Patrick, 3 100-yard games. Albert Akuyabunam in his first 2 games as a rookie tight end, 100 yards in his third game scored. Like, there is so much potential. I'm not going to say it all works out. Like, Jerry Jeudy had a lot of rough spots in his rookie season. He's also able to draw a lot of targets, put up some numbers, and it was bad quarterback play and bad offensive play. There's just so much untapped potential. So if you want to read more about that, more about some other sneaky landing spots, and, I have an archive of stuff going on there.
Yes.
Go ahead and check all that out. But that is the one thing I think as I was writing my most recent piece, I was most excited about. Like, the weapons there are just sick. I didn't even name half of them.
Like, you're saying that, if Cam Newton isn't number 32, Drew Lock might be.
That's somewhere in the right ballpark.
All right. There's been a lot of news relating to the quarterbacks. We had previously discussed the trade of Matthew Stafford and Jared Goff and what that means for the teams. Since then, there has been another trade. It's Carson Wentz to the Colts. I think a third round pick, the 85th pick overall. And then a conditional pick, currently a second rounder, could move to a first rounder with pretty easily achieved incentives like 75% playing time or 70% playing time and a playoff berth, which says to me, Justin, that if he's sucking halfway through the season, they're benching him. But just beyond that, your take on this trade in general and just the Colts half for this particular portion of the conversation.
Well, we recorded a few weeks ago, and it seemed like it was impossible that Carson Wentz was going anywhere. But some way, somehow, teams managed to finagle it. I think, and you guys would probably be in agreement, 4 years ago, he was well on his way to an MVP season and prior to injury. I mean, I think the tools are there. This Eagles team, the offensive line wasn't the way it was that we were accustomed to for sure. And it was just time for a move. And I use this time and time again. Sometimes a geographical relocation can pan out. Now you're going to be reacquainted with Frank Reich on a run-oriented offense in Indianapolis with at least a top 5 offensive line. You have stability in the backfield. You have some young talent at wide receiver. Change is good. Sometimes change is good. And I think the ingredients are there for him to succeed. It's obvious it's a different audience in Indianapolis as opposed to Philadelphia, where they're just ruthless. And it was
a different media environment.
Well, that's just it. And sometimes it's time. And I think that, Jalen Hurts it was his time. So, Phillip Rivers did okay in Indianapolis. I think, and again, I say this, feel like you said this every show. Offensive lines matter. They are as good as it gets. They're going to protect them. They're going to run the football. They might not ask him to do a ton.
Have a good defense.
They have a great defense. So I think this is a team that is going to compete in the AFC South. I think he has showed us before he's got the goods. So we'll see what happens. It's going to be an interesting story, and and he's going to have a shot. So I'm excited.
Yeah, it's nice to see someone get a fresh start, especially someone that showed some promise early on. The guy on the other side of that equation, Kyle. And by the way, don't overlook the addition a couple of weeks ago of Press Taylor to the Colts coaching staff, who's the guy that's been alongside Carson Wentz, maybe a foreshadowing move that this was actually going to come to fruition. But he's been the guy along with Wentz the entire time in Philadelphia and has played a prominent role. So for the better or worse, I guess. On the other side, Kyle, we see Jalen Hurts. Great opportunity. Look for the Eagles to add to this mix. But he's the prime guy. Is his running ability alone enough to overcome that, 52% completion rate we saw last year? An offensive line with some question marks, a receiving core with some question marks, and a new coaching staff.
Yes, man, you just piled on a lot, and you're not wrong on any of it. You're not exaggerating on any of it. The coaching staff, I didn't think the coaching staff before was particularly bad. Maybe made some, bold or brash decisions that management didn't agree with. I don't think they were always, bad decisions. They weren't, bumbling buffoons. The receiving core, I don't know how it's going to turn massively around, and if they turn it around, it's probably at the expense of the offensive line. No team has the assets to make up for the deficit they're working with in terms of talent. So in terms of fantasy, I do think his running ability alone is going to absolutely send him to the moon. I think having him projected as a top 5 quarterback it doesn't even faze me at all. That makes perfect sense because in his first NFL start, he ran for 100 yards. He's incredible. And I do think as a passer, he should be okay. He was actually a really accurate passer in college. That was one of his strong suits, that he was sort of Lamar Jackson that way, where he didn't wow you as a passer, but he took what the defense gave him. And then as a runner, he was just off the charts. But now you move to the next level. We saw his accuracy come down a bit. That could be because his receivers weren't catching all of the passes or running the right routes. Could be because he was under pressure. But those things don't seem like they're changing. So I do fear that as much as I love him as a prospect, that this system is just, in terms of the talent around him, is going to destine him for a very difficult start to his NFL career. Maybe he makes enough splash plays. I kind of think he does make enough splash plays to get himself maybe another year as the starter, maybe at least open the next season as a starter. From a fantasy perspective, it's wheels up. From a real-life NFL perspective, I would be wildly concerned if I were his agent, his family, because it's just not a good spot to start. It destroyed Carson Wentz.
Right. All right, I totally agree with that. All right, Justin, let's pull the thermometer out of the container, I guess. That's a euphemism or not. I don't know. And take the temperature of the Deshaun Watson situation in Houston. Sounds like the Texans still aren't budging. So we've had the two big trades. There's a lot of quarterback movement, but it's all going to depend on Watson, right? And this seems like this thing, if he's not moved by the day of the draft or something like that, we're going to see this huge amount of movement either right before the draft or prior. So where are you at on Watson leaving the Houston Texans right now, as of today, February 24th, 2021?
Yeah, he's another guy we've been watching closely for weeks. The party's over. I said before, they better get it right. They better get it right quick. And the party has just ended as far as I can see. Otherwise, you're going to have a disgruntled employee or a guy that just sits out. So tonight, it'd be interesting to see him with Miami. They can give him the most, quite frankly. They have 2 elite corners in Xavier Howard and Byron Jones. They can give 4 or 5 top 50 draft picks. If the Dolphins want to compete, and we saw what Buffalo did, I think the party's over for the Pats for the foreseeable future. They're going to want to compete. I don't think they're going to do it with Tua. Obviously, Tua would be a part of that deal. So, from a fantasy angle, you'd almost like to see him in Carolina with DJ Moore and guys like Robbie Anderson and Christian McCaffrey. But from a real life standpoint, the Miami Dolphins is a juicy fit in a kind of a revitalized AFC East. So it'll be interesting. Like I said, I think if I had to bet, it would be the Miami Dolphins tonight. But it's another interesting situation, and it's a damn shame, as I also said, that you can allow this to happen to a guy of that caliber. And they're probably going to be kicking themselves in the pants because tonight, Deshaun Watson, regardless of what team he plays for, is a top 10 NFL quarterback easily.
Kyle, how disgruntled could you be with a $156 million contract?
I don't want to, obviously the answer is, I could never be that disgruntled. But also, honestly, psychologically, there's a very real aspect of, you grow numb to these kinds of things. Is there a noticeable difference between 50 million and 150? On your day-to-day, no. And where does that line come? I don't know, 5, 10, 20, 15? So sure, he's rich, but, you can still, I don't think he's a bad guy for being rich and still thinking that, his management, it's the golden handcuffs, right? You get a really good paying job, but it turns out you don't like that job or you don't like the people you work with, and you can't complain about it because you have money. I think the name's the golden handcuffs. And his the way he's treated probably was really bad, and I still think you have some sort of right to complain about it. And he's handling it, I think, really well. There was the thing where there was a social media movement, I assume it was on Twitter, of people wanting to, basically protest or gather somewhere in Houston to, protest his, the management side. They were supporting him, basically. And he immediately came out and was like, no, guys, that's not safe. I love you. Thank you so much. Please don't do that. And it was sort of J.J. Watt was the same way. He's like, it's time for me to move on. I love everything you've given me. So I do think in terms of, should he, I don't know what he should do or not, but he's handling it really well.
Watching the the Texans YouTube stream when they introduced David Culley as the head coach, Nick Caserio, the new general manager, the comments, the Houston fans want him to leave because they hate their own franchise so much.
That's a good fan base. That's your fan base, truly being good fans, man. Good for them.
So, Justin kind of highlighted that I think the Panthers would be all in on this. Some rumors that maybe even Christian McCaffrey could come back as part of a package. It's still going to take a boatload of number 1 draft picks, 3, maybe 4. I don't know. The Jets have been mentioned, but they seem to be, we'll talk about them in a minute. Dolphins seem to be a preferred landing spot for him. So just Justin, what do you think the Texans could get right now in terms of first round draft capital?
Oh man,
Do we have the Jeopardy music?
I know.
Yeah, you got to get. I mean, it's going to be an awful lot, like you said. But I mean, and how hard to? He's out. He's on his way out the door. It's just a matter of the shenanigans that can be played from a financial side of things. I mean, what do you guys think? I mean,
I don't know that he's on his way out. I think they're holding pretty firm right now. I think as a franchise, they've demonstrated that they're willing to piss him off, right? So, I mean, he's mad already. How much madder can he get?
What are you going to get out of him? If you retain him?
Right. I honestly, I think that, we're in an era of football where players, we can look no further back than Jalen Ramsey, basically working his way out of Jacksonville in a similar manner to the Rams. So and Kyle is right. Watson is being way classier about this than Jalen Ramsey ever was. So we'll see where it goes. Kyle, what do you think he's worth? I mean, think about this. A guy, a fifth-year player, maybe has another 15 years. He's a top 5 at his position. I mean, he's worth a lot.
Yeah, I think he's worth 4 or 5 high first-round picks. But the thing is, I doubt they ever get that.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Yeah, but they're not going to get that. I don't think that needs to come. You're not going to get 100 pennies on the dollar for Watson because you have no leverage other than the fact that you're playing the game of chicken and hope you win. The Panthers can call up and say yeah, we don't think he's going to play for you. We think he will sit out, so we're going to lowball you, and every team can do that. I still think the middle of that lies somewhere in the 2 to 3 first-round pick, then probably some other stuff, seconds, thirds, or role player types. I think he's worth much more than they're going to get, though. I think he leaves for, I'm going to say, 2 first-round picks, multiple seconds, and a player, let's call it.
Interesting. We will see about that. And by the way, Teddy Bridgewater is the latest guy to take all the Panthers stuff off his or all his own team stuff. We saw Watson do it. Now Teddy Bridgewater has removed the Panthers from his Instagrams and whatnot. So always a little bit of drama, and no drama in Pittsburgh anymore, apparently, where we kind of had the thing where Big Ben Roethlisberger said, I think it was last month, like, I'll play for whatever. And then the Steelers came out and said, we don't know if he's going to be around. I mean, he already said he would play for whatever. And then they kind of apparently have it ironed out. They announced yesterday, his agent announced they met, him and ownership, Art Rooney, too, and that it's all good. Then Rooney put out a statement today suggesting it's all good. And for some reason, Juju Smith-Schuster wants to be a Steeler for life. So that's great. I don't know how many of these guys they can keep. It's not a great situation. I'm going to start with you on this one, Kyle. What is Ben Roethlisberger as a Steeler? I mean, offensive line concerns, rushing game concerns. I don't know, man.
Yeah, that's how I feel. I almost feel less that I don't know, and I almost do know it's going to be not particularly good because, like you said, how can they keep Juju? He's going to be probably one of the 3 highest paid free agents. It'll probably be Allen Robinson and then him, unless maybe someone splurges on like Will Fuller or something. So he's going to be one of the most coveted, probably the second most coveted free agent receiver. They have no cap. They're like one of the bottom cap teams, and that doesn't mean they have little to spend. It means they have a lot to get off the books.
Yeah.
And they already, like you said, they have offensive line concerns. Like, they have players on defense who can leave, and do they choose to keep the defense together? I think almost the best case scenario is it looks like it did last year, where they play kind of smart. Like, I think throwing the football a lot in short, if your quarterback isn't super capable of throwing it deep, makes sense. Like, that was the Drew Brees model. He's not the most gifted quarterback, but you let him take, 100% layups 100% of the time, and that works out well. But with less talent, because they're probably not going to have Juju, they're not going to have as good of an offensive line, I imagine. Maybe they can really just get kind of luck box into a good first round pick. Justin Jefferson went in the range that they'll be spending in. So maybe they get a giant playmaker there, whether it be on, offensive line, a cornerback, whatever. But, it just feels like we're going to see a significantly lesser version of what we saw last year, which wasn't that good anyways.
It was it started out good. It started out, 11-0? I mean, it was great guns, and then it totally went off the rails, Justin. So, I mean, is there a chance he could return to that early season form, given the issues?
Like Kyle said, they threw the football as much as anybody, right?
More.
It's just more than anybody. So it's going to come down to finances, right? I mean, there's some really serious financial things going on as far as the cap goes. And to retain Juju Smith-Schuster, who's probably going to – Curtis Samuel's commanding between $9 and $12 million because of the season he had. So you got to imagine Juju's going to be probably between $15 and $20 million. So, you'd like – as a football fan, I think Roethlisberger is one of these guys you'd like to see him wrap his career up in Pittsburgh. He's going to the Hall of Fame, no doubt. But there's a decision to be made. They want to win. They probably have their best chance with Ben Roethlisberger. If they part ways, which I think Juju Smith-Schuster, I get to love his loyalty. I mean, he's a California kid, could stay in California, wants to be a Steeler, get it, rich heritage there. But you do have guys like Deontay Johnson and Chase Claypool that are a lot of teams would kill to have. So probably makes sense to keep Ben Roethlisberger if you want to win. Now, Ben Roethlisberger. And you let Juju hit free agency and have somebody else pay him $20 million a year.
All right, mid-show corrections. Nobody will be killing themselves. Also, Matt Ryan and Tom Brady threw more passes, 626 and 610, to Ben Roethlisberger, 608. But you get the idea. He threw a lot because they couldn't run good. And we'll see what the running back situation looks like there with James Conner unlikely to stay and a mixed bag behind him, right? I mean, it doesn't look promising. Let's look at some other situations, a couple quarterback situations. The Cowboys will franchise Dak Prescott, but not until they have to. I think they have until March 9th. Just seems like they're never going to get that long-term deal done. To you, Justin, is he worth that $37 million on the second franchise tag?
No. But I will say this: it was nice to imagine Dak Prescott with that cast of wide receivers last year, right? I mean, that's what we really wanted to see because. And obviously the Cowboys did too. So let's see it happen. $40 million, $37 million. it's north of what the market is, but it's not that far. I mean, he's not an old guy. So look, from a fantasy angle, if you want to see Dak Prescott with that cast, Amari Cooper and the Gallups of the world, and CeeDee Lamb. So,
I think
it's going to be at least. Go ahead.
I think it's fair to say he's not going anywhere. It's just a matter of, do you think that? I mean, do you think he'll return that value? I think is more the question. And the Cowboys will, even if they franchise him, they'll have till July 15th to get a longer-term deal done. It seemed like they were close on the money, but the sticking point was the length of contract. Cowboys want a little longer than Dak, who wants a chance to cash in again.
Yeah, I mean, look, the pieces are there. I think the defense has some questions, but I think the NFC East is up for grabs. So it's the going rate. I mean, you told me a long time ago, and it's the truth. And we say it all the time. There's a dire need in the NFL for QB competency. I think he's a couple ticks above that.
If Cam Newton is not 32, that is a true statement.
Yeah, I mean, the wheels fell off of Cam Newton quick. In fact, I think he's begging to stay here because we're the only ones that'll take him. But I think you got to see what Dak Prescott can do with this cast. And let's face it, obviously $37 million is a ton, but in a couple of years that'll probably be the average. So he's probably worth it, and he's definitely going to give them the best shot to win. I think they can win I pegged them as winning the NFC East with him last year, and I think if you look at that roster, a lot of people would have been in agreement. So another team to keep a close eye on.
I think the bottom line is they're going to pay him, and it sounds like Kyle, according to John Lynch, spoke today. There's no doubt a healthy Jimmy Garoppolo will not be the 49er starter this year. They're locked in on him. What does that mean?
I mean, so last year everything went wrong. I think Jimmy Garoppolo is probably fine. I don't think he's particularly bad. It's just, you can't really take much away from last year, and they're doing their best to get weapons around him. It's just like last year they lost basically everyone at some point. I mean, they lost Deebo Samuel to start. Brandon Ayuk was at least out a few games. George Kittle missed the second half. Even their depth, they had the COVID issues. They had Jalen Hurts, whatever, the tight end, running back, wide receiver hybrid who's been kind of preseason hyped a few times, didn't get to play a single snap for a second year in a row. They are trying to give him a good support system, and it just hasn't quite worked out. I do think he's probably limited, iconically the was it overthrow or underthrow to Emmanuel Sanders in the Super Bowl kind of just summed up that he can get you there, but can he put you over the top? Maybe not. I don't know. I think they'll still be a good offense. I don't think they'll ever reach that elite level though, no matter how many weapons you put, because he's always going to be Jimmy Garoppolo.
I think, the problem is really staying on the field. They're 24-9, including the postseason games he started. They're 7-19 when he doesn't. He's missed, though, 23 games over the past 3 seasons, only 6 last year. But you mentioned it at the Super Bowl season. The only season he played all 16 games, they were 13-3 and made that Super Bowl appearance, although you could argue he was not very helpful in the Super Bowl itself.
Right.
So I'm with Kyle here. I think there's plenty of talent around him. He needs to take that step, and he seems to sprain his ankle when he tries.
But his resume looks, it's funny. I mean, you rattle off these numbers, it's like, wow, it's eye-popping. But when you look at him, it seems like the ceiling is just limited, and he's also prone to injury. But when you look at his record, and he got a big payday for a small sample, what he did here in New England, I mean, he's a proven winner. But I don't know that being a proven winner, I just don't know that it's enough, regardless of the talent around him in San Francisco. So
a little Tom Brady news. Jason Light, the GM there in Tampa Bay, says the extension for Brady is possible. He's under contract for another year. I think it's like a $28 million cap hit. The Buccaneers up against it in terms of the cap and have a buku pile of free agents looking to move on, including Chris Godwin, Antonio Brown. I mean, there's a handful of guys and some guys on the defensive side of the ball. Godwin has basically said there won't be a hometown discount. What's he worth? Maybe, that $15-16 million range, is maybe someone will offer him more. Also, Brady's having surgery or had surgery on his knee. Sounds like it was more than a minor cleanup, but Bruce Arians said this very day, as we record this, that he'll be ready for the start of June to start throwing. So, Kyle, the Buccaneers seem like they're not worried about keeping guys. Is Brady enough? Do you think they can lose guys like Leonard Fournette, Chris Godwin, and maybe focus on the defensive side of the ball? Is their best possible choice here?
Yeah, I don't know if it's their best choice, but I do think Brady's enough. Like, I think Brady plus what they're going, like, they're going to keep probably one of, I would guess they at least keep like Gronk Brown, because those guys seem like one, like Gronk seems like a guy, I can't imagine he actually cares about playing anywhere else. He just wants to play with Brady. Can't blame him. It's worked out quite well. And Brown seems like a guy who the market is going to be limited, and he probably also wants to play with Brady. Like, Brady literally got him this job and then got him a Super Bowl. So if you keep those guys and Evans is already under contract, I think that's probably enough, and then they can focus on the defense, or they could flip it the other way. They could ensure that they keep all of the guys on offense, even if they want to go down like keeping Leonard Fournette, and the defense could be a little worse. Whatever they choose to do, less offensive weapons, great defense, plus Tom Brady, Mike Evans, Brown, and Gronk, that's enough. If they choose to go, let's lose a little bit on defense, but keep the offense together, that's enough. Will they be as good as they were last year? Maybe not quite, but like, they seem pretty clearly, once they hit their stride, that they were more than good enough. And I mean, the way, I know the Chiefs weren't exactly the Chiefs with those offensive line issues, but it looked like they could afford to lose a guy or two. Like, I didn't even think like Godwin did almost anything in that game. It was like all Gronk. So I don't know. I think they're perfectly fine losing a handful of guys as long as Brady keeps doing his things. And like, even if they lose a lot of guys in free agency, they still have a really good nucleus of players outside of Brady too.
Yeah, Justin, you're recused from all Tom Brady talk as a huge fan. But I do want to know if Fred Smerlas thinks Blaine Gabbert's going to push him for the starting job this year.
He might. I mean, the Bucks have money to spend. I don't think Chris Godwin goes anywhere. I really don't. He leaned his way a ton, despite the drops. I mean, Chris Godwin had a ton of bad drops, but like Kyle said, I mean, Tom Brady.
They
enough.
have $20 million in cap space right now, Justin. They don't have a ton to spend. They got Chris Godwin, Shaq Barrett, Levante David, Gronkowski, Brown, Fournette, Ndamukong Suh. I mean, they have a lot of guys to sign and not a lot of cash to do it.
You're going to let these defensive guys like Barrett.
Barrett's not going anywhere.
Well, in my estimation, Chris Godwin stays. I think that Tom Brady loves him, but like Kyle said, I mean, it's a plethora of offensive weaponry, so you don't need him. But I mean, it makes sense. I mean, he's a bona fide wide receiver one as far as I'm concerned in the NFL, but he is going to command probably that Juju Smith-Schuster money, 15, 18
somewhere in that
year.
Range.
So.
Yep. I agree, and I don't. I think the key here is Bruce Arians seems to love him. I've not heard, as much as we think Tom Brady loves him. I mean, we've heard Arians over the course of last season, in fact, at one point called him the straw that stirs the offensive drink. So we'll see. Justin, the Jets are going to take their time. And look, they're in a good position, right? With Sam Darnold, have a lot of options. They can decide that he's all right and that they can use their draft capital to build around him. They can decide he's not all right, trade and get a boatload of draft capital in addition to that second overall pick. Maybe take a quarterback there that they'd rather build around. When you watch Sam Darnold, what do you think?
I see ghosts. Look, if winning costs money, right? And if you're going to play with Buffalo and you're going to play with the Pats, again, I think this ship is sailed. You're going to need to put something together at some point in time. I've seen enough. I think we've seen enough. I think you draft Zach Wilson and you move on, and it's time to do something different. Hopefully the culture changes a little bit, but I mean, this is Cleveland Brown-esque. I mean, former Cleveland Brown-esque. And I mean, they just get accustomed to them losing. You get accustomed to them losing. And now the the Miami Dolphins are a good football team. They're going to get better. They have Tua or Deshaun Watson. We know what the Buffalo Bills are. So at the very least, you're playing for third in the AFC East. Sam Darnold is not the avenue. I mean, we've seen this time and time again. It hasn't shaken out. And I'm not saying he's a guy that's going to go somewhere else and thrive. But as an organization in the Big Apple, which is a big market, it might be time to just go in a different direction and start something fresh. So that's where I'm at. But at the end of the day, they're a 3 or 4 win team at best, regardless of who the quarterback is in 2021.
Right, and they will evaluate all those draft prospects and make a decision. This will maybe one of those dominoes we talk about falling as we get close to the draft is something we're just not going to know. And I think we're at a little bit of a lull because I don't think anyone else is moving. Sounds like Marcus Mariota was the guy that was maybe on a lot of people's radar. Sounds like his contract now is kind of a hitch in the get along. He has a really high-end playing time incentives, so that could be an issue. One more quarterbacky thing here, Kyle, I wanted to get to for sure is Bill Bedwell, the owner of the Cardinals, is looking for the next jump from Kyler Murray.
His boy.
What should his expectation be?
His expectation should be for Cliff to run a less generic offense. Like Cliff, passes a lot, sure, but he has the least creative college style offense I've ever seen. It's like he thought that, oh, well, this worked against these terrible Big 12 defenses with elite caliber quarterbacks, so let's just run it again. But you see games where DeAndre Hopkins runs 3 routes from the exact same spot on the field every single play. There's more ways to be creative, and his weapons aren't that good. He has one of the best receivers in the league, 100%. And after that, Christian Kirk was a massive disappointment. Larry Fitzgerald's corpse gets dragged onto the field every game for him to have one of the worst yards per target you'll ever find for a receiver.
Easy.
And Andy Isabella, my God, I love Andy, but they get nothing out of him. It's all these fourth receiver. They don't even know who they are. They're practice squad players. No tight ends of consequence.
I will try to get past this Dan Arnold slander. Continue.
He made some good fun splash plays. Maybe they can get him more involved. I don't know, but there's just one receiver, a mediocre offensive line, whatever running backs. If in an individual game the Kyler Murray to DeAndre Hopkins connection isn't putting up 150 yards, you're just not getting enough out of the rest of the guys. So sure, Kyler Murray still has room to grow, absolutely. But he has shown that he has a ceiling that is sort of unmatched by very maybe 5 or 7, probably not even 10 quarterbacks. But I don't think he's been put into a position to actually unlock that on a consistent basis, both by the talent around him and the kind of vanilla, as far as imports of college offenses go, the kind of vanilla offense of that. So sure, maybe he just defies the expectations of having bad weapons and a meh offense around him. But I think he still deserves to get more support. So that leap, maybe it comes from him, but I think the easier place to find it is tell Cliff to run a better offense. Get them more receivers. Do something.
Yeah, I don't disagree. Go ahead, Justin.
No, I mean, they've tried. You got guys like Butler and Andy Isabella. Obviously, you're right about Larry Fitzgerald. I mean, it's just he doesn't want to go away, but you can't really tell a guy like Larry Fitzgerald to go away. So
I tell you to go away all the time. Oh wait, you're not.
Yeah, and it doesn't.
It doesn't work.
Here you are. Yet still he persists.
That's right.
All right. So a couple other just little minor quarterback issues I thought was interesting. Alex Smith coming out in GQ magazine and saying basically what probably we all knew, and probably what I thought. That the Washington didn't want him around. The new regimes, he feels like he threw a wrench into their 2020 plans by returning. Turned out to be fortuitous, but they did go out of their way not to play him. Do you blame them for this, Justin? I mean, I keep thinking back to that little celebratory video in his driveway where it looked like he could barely run, and I'm thinking, God, they can't let this guy play. Clearly he was better than I thought, but it's not like anyone should have expected to come back Player of the Year award, right?
They are one of the worst ran organizations in all of professional sports. The fans hate them, and Dan Snyder is probably demonic, if I could guess. So, and Alex Smith, on the other hand, is one of the best stories we've seen in a long, long time in the NFL. When you look at his leg, it looked like, probably one of the worst things I've ever seen. So for him to even stand up, let alone play at the NFL level, is, is respect. Just it's a good story with an atrocious organization as far as I'm concerned. Yeah, they won the NFCs, but that doesn't say a ton at all. It was under 500. So he's I think he's a role model for certain. It was an interesting story. Well, it wasn't too long ago where Alex Smith had the best year of his career in Kansas City after the longest leash you've ever seen in San Francisco. And they moved on from him, and I was like, wow. And you guys
because they had Pat Mahomes. I mean, it's not like,
and that's just it. And you guys were right, and I was wrong about Patrick Mahomes. So it's a good story, terrible organization. I think you got to let a guy like Alex Smith play. I mean, he's obviously not as mobile as he once was, but for good reason. Yeah, the three of us wouldn't be either.
3-part question, Kyle. Alex Smith, is it just the most interesting aspect of this story that he has a little bit of attitude about it? Number 2, is Cam Newton the right choice to step into this offense and carry them over to serve as a bridge just based on his knowledge of the offense? And 3, how great is it to be smarter than Justin?
We'll work backwards. 3, it's not a high bar to clear, so it doesn't feel, it's a participation trophy essentially. Cam Newton, like I thought Cam Newton maybe stood a chance to have some sort of success, and his weapons around him in New England were so incredibly bad that it would have never happened. I don't think it'll happen anyways. He didn't look good enough. Like better passers could have at least made something out of those guys, and it was absolutely abysmal, both on his part and on his weapons part. Oh, great. You go and get Terry McLaurin's awesome, but after that, you run into the sort of the Kyler Murray situation where if that single connection doesn't work in a game, you're probably getting dusted off anyways. And Cam Newton is not that kind of player who's going to elevate the guys around him. So no, like he's probably capable of manning an offense where everything is set around him. He has good weapons, a good line, and an offense that is run in a smart way. He can probably run that offense. Anything less than that, and it's probably not going to go that well. And yes, that's awesome that Alex Smith, we always think of him, maybe because of his style more than actually his personality, as the most vanilla sort of guy. And for him to come out and have that fire to him still is good for him. It's good to still have that attitude about playing in the NFL.
What about Taylor Heineke? Didn't he look okay?
No, why? No.
Kind of a narrow band.
I'm sure he looked fine, but when you have the
27 years
opportunity,
old. I get it.
You have to be taking shots on these high-end quarterbacks all the time, whether it be making some sort of pursuit for Deshaun Watson, whether it be just taking cracks at, the 5th drafted quarterback, the number 20 whatever quarterback. Lamar Jackson was the MVP in his second year, and wasn't he the 32nd pick or 31st? You have to take those shots if you want to compete with Patrick Mahomes and Tom Brady and the elite of the elite. I struggle to even imagine a scenario in which Heineke ever puts you in that stratosphere.
Yeah, I think the affordable domino that we all need to be watching is Jameis Winston. The Saints, $60 million in the hole against the cap. We don't know. Drew Brees still hasn't said he's retiring yet. It was supposed to be 2 weeks ago that we heard this, and they restructured his contract. We might not get firm resolution on him until they release him, or he retires, because that's a June salary cap kind of issue. Maybe he's just trying to save him some money, and that's the only thing. But I think Jameis Winston is going to be a guy to watch as free agency opens. I think there'll be teams willing to bid on him and pay a little bit, certainly more than the Saints can afford, unless they do some wrangling. I want to finish up with this, guys. Aaron.
Well, real quick, what about Taysom Hill? I thought Taysom Hill was the next answer. 4 years, $40 million.
He might be. I don't think they've decided yet. I feel like they've decided, and I feel like they would rather have Jameis Winston. I just don't know if they can pay him. Where are you at on that, Kyle?
Yeah, I think we talked about this last time.
Yep.
I felt almost sure that there was no way they were going to be able to keep Jameis Winston. I thought the market would be just enough that a team with literally negative cap in the dozens of millions.
It's 60.
60. All right. Yeah, man. That's. So I thought there was no way. I thought there was no way they'd keep him. And every single leak from Schefter, every single report says that they are willing to do what it takes to keep Jameis in-house. So I went from thinking 0 chance Jameis stays to, I mean, they've done, the Saints are always a team where they have no cap, and then they sign some expensive player and we're the cap is not real. So I've moved closer to 25 instead of 10% chance that he stays. I still think they can't afford him, and they probably saw enough out of Taysom Hill to at least feel comfortable with him as their second choice. But the chance is growing that they keep Jameis, I guess, because they keep saying they want to keep Jameis, and I at least am going to have to take them at their word that they're going to try everything they can.
All right, guys. So Dolphins, 49ers, Steelers, and Bears are said to be teams that have an interest in Aaron Jones. The latest reporting today, Barry Jackson at the Miami Herald, very well connected with the Dolphins, says the Dolphins have a great interest and the interest is mutual, and that they might be willing to come up with a 4-year, $46 million contract. This is a prediction from Football Focus, not a report, a prediction. And with $25 million guaranteed, kind of the similar guarantee to what Derrick Henry got. Number one, does that seem reasonable? And number two, I want each of you to give me the preferred landing spot. I know we didn't mention the Falcons. That's been discussed just because they have an opening or we perceive a need. Justin, go.
I think he gets tagged, and I think he stays with the Green Bay Packers.
Fair. Kyle, go.
I don't think he days. It's definitely possible. I don't think it happens. Dolphins would be a really good spot. I think they're an offense that whether they keep Tua or whether they move on, get Deshaun Watson, draft someone, they just have like so much potential given just the trove of assets they have that both in terms of if they're going to pay him a lot, it's probably indicative that they want to give him the ball a lot more than he got in Green Bay. And if they're mutual, like the interest is mutual, then he's going to go there and probably get a lot of touches on like his end. He wants touches. They're willing to pay him to take on those touches, and the offense should be good around him. So if both parties are interested in making a massive deal, that is typically, in my opinion, indicative of their willingness to use him a lot. So I want to go to a place where I think he'll get touches. If a team is willing to pay him a lot, that's where I think he should go. And it seems like the Dolphins are that team.
Yeah, seems very likely. And, we see these teams in the AFC East kind of to establish this culture of winning that they learned from the Patriots. In Miami's case, they stole directly from the Patriots in the form of Brian Flores. And in the Bills, Sean McDermott and Brandon Beane doing a great job there. All right, guys. So one more time, everybody, hit the website. It's footballdiehards.com. You can sign up for the 2021 season right now. It'll be the cheapest it'll be. 15% discount using the promo code DieHards when you sign up. We're going to start working on all the magazines this year. That's right. All of them will be available this season. The Pro Forecast in its 32nd year. The Football Diehards heading into its third decade. Older than 20. It's like older than Justin, I think. The draft book, which will feature one Justin Lonero, unlike Twitter where you can't find him, but we'll get into that in a second.
Ouch.
And the Cheat Sheets magazine. So looking forward to all we have coming. Keep hitting the website for all Kyle's updated articles. John Law putting up some great content as well, and a constant flow of news. Follow me on Twitter @FootballDieHard. Follow Kyle @KyleTweetsHere. Justin, tell us the sad tale of woe.
Yeah, I've been suspended from Twitter. Look, I'm told that I'll be reinstated. My suspension will be reinstated, but it was a copyright thing. Hilariously, it was in regards to a Jameis Winston post that I had, and some A&R person didn't like the music, and here we are, Twitterless. But I'll say this, and I said this before the show. I mean, it is a little liberating. I'm not on wasting hours on Twitter, but
you're doing it on Facebook instead.
That's right. Yeah. That's why we have Facebook. I downgraded. So, that's all right.
I'm hoping they'll let you back soon. Many of your followers have reached out to me. All of them miss you dearly, as do I. So hopefully you will be back soon. Twitter, if you're listening, get with it, man. He's not orange. It's okay. All right, everybody, let's wrap it up.
Yeah, that's it. You got the Twitters, you got the content. Guys, we will catch you, sporadically throughout the offseason, and thanks for tuning in. Finally.